Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Right, so today I have a rather interesting experience shared to me via a subscriber that I love talking with. I had actually was going to do something completely different today. I had an upload already recorded. Subscriber submitted experience already done. But once I heard this, I got a text from a gentleman, Robert, from Silver City, New Mexico. And I thought it was about his son. His son is camping right now, and he is on the West Fork of the Gila River out in some remote canyon area. So I thought that was what he was going to talk to me about. I thought something had happened to him. Robert didn't want JR to go out there this time. He had a real bad feeling for some reason. But Robert, being a lifelong resident of Silver City and just a really personable person, knows a lot of people, went to school with the former sheriff from that area, and he contacts me saying, hey, I had just recently spoken with another person that I had gone to school with, and their lives had gone a completely different path than what it was when we were in school. And I want to share with you what they shared with me. Pretty intense experience, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about the gentleman firsthand. I didn't know this. I always thought that priests use their name that they are given at birth. But apparently some do and some don't. There was a gentleman that he had gone to school with, Jerry, or Gerald, and he was, now when I say went totally different two ways, Robert during school, normal kid stuff, growing up in the 60s, drinking beer, just, hanging out with your buddies, nothing better to do except in these, remote, isolated towns in New Mexico. Robert said we'd have, races, modified races. We'd soup up, an old Chevy or an old Ford and race them, So that's what he was into growing up. And his best friend, Jerry, was identical. They were two peas in a pod. And they had planned on going to college together, possibly together or apart. They had their whole kind of life plan in front of them until one night when Jerry had been racing in a kind of a drag race, and he had crashed his car. Apparently, he had died, and he had seen the light. He said that Jerry was never much into God. He didn't talk much. His family wasn't very religious. Maybe every Sunday they would go to Mass, or not even that, maybe every holy day. But it was just something that his family wasn't into. So he's in the hospital for a couple weeks. He was pretty badly hurt. But when he got out of the hospital, his whole outlook had changed on life and ended up going into seminary school and becoming a priest. Took the name George, so Father George, and from Jerry, which I did not know that was something that was chosen. Because I always thought, to be honest with you, I only knew one Catholic priest by his first name, Father Pat. But all the other priests that were in my church, I only knew them by their last name. But he ends up finding God after this just horrific automobile accident. And they end up kind of losing touch with each other until Robert is getting married and reaches out to Jerry, or Father George. We'll refer to him as Father George now at this point. Reaches out to his mother and says, hey, this is Robert, how are you? And I'm going to be getting married soon. And I'd like Jerry. And then that's when she corrects him and says, his name's Father George now. And he said, yes, I knew that, yes. But I was hoping that he would marry my wife and I. So would Father George, I'd like him to marry my wife and I, or my fiance and I. We've always been close. And, his mom obviously knew Robert because they were best of friends. And she reaches out to her son, and he agrees. He contacts Robert, and they talk, and he meets with his wife and this and that. And then as life goes on, he is involved in JR's life as well, with the baptism, and he was there. He couldn't do his first communion because he wasn't the priest of the parish that Robert and his family went to, but he was there. He actually had helped him study for his confirmation and this and that. Just a large, practically a member of his family. And so throughout the years, they've had these kind of interesting talks about things that JR had seen. And if you're not familiar and you're kind of clueless on this, and you're like, what did JR see? JR is the young man who saw out in Gila, witnessed a pack or group of crawler-like creatures attack, kill, and pull into a small cave, a dogman, a large dogman. Then, as he is trying to get out of that area, he is being stalked. What he believed were by the crawlers, and he believes they were in the trees, using the trees until a certain point. And then they had actually gotten onto the ground. He did make it out okay. So throughout all of this, he is, they have had these very interesting talks. And as a Catholic priest, probably has conversations with his best friend that most Catholic priests wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe they do amongst friends and family, but he had talked about a little bit about how the Bible has mentioned what he believes to be UFOs, and what he believes there to be demonic creatures, and so on. So throughout the years, that's been a topic of conversation. Now, through all of this, Robert had said to him a couple months ago, about 6 months ago, I want you to hear exactly what I shared, what I and my son JR shared with Jeff on his channel, so you can get kind of an overall look at what is going on in New Mexico. He had shared about my view on New Mexico. And he had listened to the channel a couple of different times. Not adamantly or not all the time. I mean, just periodically when I do an upload on New Mexico, Robert would send it to him. Send him the link and he would check it out. And as many of you know, I believe there's a deep underground facility. Notice I did not say military, but a deep underground facility under a large portion of northern New Mexico, going all the way into southern Colorado. These creatures do not know borders. It just so happens that there is a border there. When they built these facilities. And then the military came in, and that's when researchers and writers decided to say deep underground military bases, DUMBs, because it sounds pretty cool. I don't like the term myself because the military wasn't involved from the beginning. These things have been here for a very long time. Actually, in one of the treaties or pacts that were conducted with Eisenhower, it was in a deep underground base. Not by the military, but by these alien/demonic creatures. So, Father George, after hearing all of the things I talk about in New Mexico, hearing JR's experiences, he had grown up in the area where Robert lives, and he vaguely recalled hearing about that mining incident where the two security guards at a mine had seen a couple of these, a Dogman come out with a crawler. They thought it was a kid. And needless to say, a pack of crawlers ended up attacking the guard shack. Good thing they were in their truck when they did, because they probably would have been dead. And so he calls Robert and says, listen, he said, I'd like to share my experience with you, and then you can tell Jeff. I don't care if he uses my name, just not my last name. But I think it's important that people hear it because of who I am. And so throughout the years, families move. His father had passed. His mom ended up moving out to Flagstaff, Arizona. And where George is, he is in a parish in a rather strange area of New Mexico. It's kind of like the waterflow, Fruitland, Kirtland region. And he had been visiting his mother, and he was on his way home from Flagstaff. So he had taken kind of a roundabout way, because the reservations are in that area, and you really can't just go through the reservation. So he ended up taking like 160 up to almost the top part of Arizona, the northern part of Arizona, and following 160 along the northern part of Arizona, and then he was going to cross over into New Mexico, and instead of following 160 up into Colorado. Jesus, Tigger. Sorry about that. Instead of I cannot believe he just jumped up on my desk. Instead of going into Colorado via 160, take 64 into New Mexico and following it like from Shiprock into the Kirtland and Fruitland area, and then he would be home. So that was what his plan was. Now he gets to the northern part, and it is nighttime now. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and he had just gotten into the area called Red Mesa, Arizona. So he just gets into this area called Red Mesa, and he's driving about 10 o'clock, dark out, not any light pollution, so he can see, it's a clear night, he can see the stars through his windows, and he's coming up. There's another road that connects to 160 going north, and he believes it's 191 or 190. But he gets to that, almost to that intersection. He has the right of way. But it merges together to form 160. And then if you keep going, 160 juts up into Colorado, 64 juts into New Mexico. So as he's coming up, he sees, mind you, it's dark. It's the northern part of Arizona. There's very little light pollution. So when you see lights in the distance, you can see them. It's not like they just magically pop out of nowhere. So he knows that this is not a trip that he's taken once. This is a trip he's taken multiple times to see his mother down in Flagstaff. As he's coming through, he knows that, okay, he kind of looks in advance to see if there's any lights at that kind of merge on 191 or 190, 190. I wrote down 191, but I think he said 190. As he's coming up to it, he's maybe a quarter of a mile away. He said, I am a Catholic priest. He said, I do, when there is no one around and the road is clear, he said, I do revert a little bit to the old days. He said, I was going a little faster than I should have. He said, I was going about 80 miles an hour, and now we're to an eighth of a mile from that kind of intersection fork. And mind you, you can see clearly to the south, to the north, to the east. You can see on all sides of you, all around, if there were any lights. As he's almost to it, bam, headlights just turn on. Not like they pulled up and turned out. No, these turned on. And it was very startling for him because he had to immediately brake, not come to a complete halt or stop, but he had to brake. And they don't stop or anything. They just pull right out. And there's two vehicles. At first there was one set of headlights. He's not in the service, so he doesn't know, never was in the service, so he doesn't know the names of them, just a description. He said something that looked like a military Humvee and pulled out first. He said, and then as it's pulling out, I watched the lights turn on. He said, and it was one of those cargo trucks that you'd see with the kind of the canvas top over the back. He said, but this didn't have a canvas top. This was definitely a military truck. They were definitely painted the military color. They had the right insignias and such on them, the right license plates and everything. But this was clearly a cargo vehicle, just with what appeared to be a solid sides, solid top, solid door, instead of that canvas with the canvas flap. That turns out, but no lights. So now he's thinking, well, okay, I'm going to stop or slow down even more in case a third one is going to come out behind it. And lo and behold, another set of lights turn on, boom, and it's another Humvee. So within a matter of less than 30 seconds to a minute, you have a lead Humvee, a solid, instead of the canvas topped cargo trucks, but this was a solid, truck with another Humvee behind that, pulling out onto 160. And he's passes, kind of looks down 190 and looks down into it and kind of just shakes his head because he's thinking, well, maybe it's a trick of my eyes. Maybe it was how the corner was, and I just thought they turned on their lights. He's trying to come up with something rational. And he's following these vehicles. And he's following them for about 10, 15 minutes. And out of the blue, instead of going up into Colorado, they go the same way he's going, right onto 64. Now, at this point, you are at the Four Corners. You are at Arizona, Mexico, Colorado, and Utah, I believe. So you're like right there, boom. But he was thinking that these guys were going to go up to a base up in Colorado. And that's not what happened. And they jut down in. And he's following them as well. So they immediately kind of take notice of him, and he knows it because he sees their brake lights kind of work. He slows down because he doesn't know, oh, maybe they had taken the wrong road, maybe they're going to turn around. So they're starting to slow down. And he's, like I said, he's thinking, oh, maybe they are turning around. Maybe they're, they had taken the wrong road to get to Colorado. But then he starts to think, if that's the case, wouldn't they know to go to Shiprock? And there's a route that you can take that will bring you right up through New Mexico, through the rest of the way to New Mexico, into Colorado, and once again, you can catch 160 there. He knows this area like the back of his hand. This is where he lives. He preaches the word of the Lord. He's grown up in New Mexico all his life, so this is not strange land to him. And all of a sudden they turn right into... Now, if anyone else did not know this, they would appear to be turning off into kind of the desert. But there are like private state roads right there. And so it just turned off into this kind of desert area. And he's, kind of shocked because it's not like they're slowing down to turn around. And he also knows that there's 3 or 4 different roads out there there's some with a private residence, and they go pretty deep into the desert area out there. And then there's 1 or 2 that just almost lead to nowhere, just kind of in the middle of the desert area. And he kind of looks confused. He's like, all right. And because this is not something normally that you would see. You would not normally see 3 military vehicles just drive and turn into the desert. So he passes, and as he's driving down 64, he's probably halfway to Shiprock. And he's thinking about it. And he's like, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if they're lost. I bet you they're lost. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back, and if they come out, if I'm coming up to them, I'll turn my lights on. He's got his collar on, I'll introduce myself and say, "Hey, are you guys lost? There's another route to go if you need to get to Colorado. But if you're going, this way, you're just going to go either to a private residence or to a isolated area in the desert where there's nothing. Like the road just ends. And it's a dirt road. It's not a macadamed road. So he does. He turns around and goes back. And as he's driving through, he can see red lights. They're taillights. He sees taillights in the distance of the desert on the side of, on the passenger side looking into the desert. He's like, okay, maybe they're turning around. And he sees that they're not moving. And he sees headlights, all the headlights. Shortly there, he gets to the first road, private road, which he knows is a residence. It's actually a family who is part of his parish, and they have a kid that lives there as well. So they had bought this kind of swath of land. They built their house, and then when the kid got older, he had built his house kind of off to the side. So he's like, I'll just sit right here and figure out what they're doing, because now curiosity kind of got the cat. And he's looking, and he sees what doesn't make sense. What he sees is headlights, what looks to be the first vehicle, headlights going straight out into the desert, like normal headlights. He sees the third vehicle, normal headlights. But the one in between, the cargo vehicle, instead of their lights going side by side this way, they're going this way. They're instead of horizontally, they are vertically. And he's thinking about it, and he goes, oh, that truck must have crashed. And he's sitting there like observing this whole thing going, and wondering in his head, should I call law enforcement? And he sat there for a good couple of minutes. He had gotten out of his vehicle, something that he normally does not do, but he said, I needed a cigarette at that time, and that Robert gave him shit for smoking cigarettes still, because Robert is a pinnacle of health. He really is. And he's smoking his cigarette, looking at all this, and he hears the distant thunder of a helicopter. And he hears this helicopter coming, and he's kind of looking for the lights on the bottom part of the helicopter. But he doesn't see any. He can hear it, and it's coming. And as he's looking up into the air, like, what in the hell, he hears rapid succession of gunfire. Clearly military issued rifles, rapidly firing. And as soon as that happens, he's back into his car. He put down his window in the passenger window just a crack. He had thrown his cigarette, and so he's sitting in his car, and he hears it go right over, but he can't see the lights, but he hears it. Could feel the vibration of the helicopter blade. So we knew it was low. As this helicopter, he now can see, I guess they're called running lights. He doesn't know what they're called, nor does Robert. They click on, and they are maybe 60 feet above the ground. He can see all the vehicles, the lights of the vehicles, same kind of way they were, and there's periodically a couple bursts of a rifle, not as much as there was initially. He said maybe something like 20 bursts of 3. So 60 shots in the initial, and then just periodic. And then as he decides, all right, I'm going to leave. He starts his car, and prior to starting his car, he turns his lights off so the running lights won't turn on. He does that because at that point, the helicopter, a spotlight lit up back into the desert where the vehicles were. Not over him and not looking at him or for him at this. He pulls out into the road and gives it some gas and gets the hell out of Dodge. He's familiar with the road, so he's kind of just white knuckling it on the road, hoping that he doesn't get, caught off and pulled into the side of the road there. But he passes the 3 private roads, and as he passes the last one, he's getting out of there. He turns his lights on and goes up probably about a mile and turns around. And he's real shaken up at this point because he's conflicted on what to do. He wants to, part of him says, leave it alone. Part of it says, call law enforcement. There's a small part of it that says, drive down there and see if everyone is okay. And that is that man of the cloth, let me see if everyone is okay, kind of. Thankfully, he didn't take that route. He loops it back, and he's coming up. Like I said, he went about a mile. He can see that helicopter, that spotlight coming this way, right through the desert. Not going towards him because he's on the road. It's come across, almost following that private road that these trucks just went down. And he starts to slow down because he doesn't want to. He's well aware of that helicopter's probably seen his lights by now. But he doesn't want that helicopter to be over him at all, too. So he's slowing down 30 miles an hour, and the helicopter goes boom, right across the road. Right across, and then loops back around. He watches it. And he's still going straight on 64. And all of a sudden, he looks out the passenger side window and sees it. It's made like a circle back around. Not almost like not caring about him. But it's got that spotlight dead set on where it just came off of. And he's looking at it, and as his eyes go back to the road, he said, this thing, this abomination of anything godly, ran across the road, stops in the middle of the road, turns full on, and looks at my vehicle. I stopped at a dead stop. I looked at this thing. We had locked eyes. We were maybe 60 feet from each other. I couldn't see an exact color. It was dark. It was dark in color. It was either a very dark brown or black. There were no markings on its chest. There was no any kind of white or light color. And when I saw that thing's eyes, I knew for certain that I was staring at a demon and what a demon looks like. And he said, I don't know why. He said, but something in my brain, instead of saying, turn back around, just said, go as fast and as straight as you can. And if it doesn't get out of your way, hit it. Not very godly, but once again, he's also thinking of his safety. And he just gives it some gas and goes. As he's going, this thing starts what appears to be running toward him. Now, that's a kind of speculation at that point because he thought it was running at him. He didn't know it was running at him until it got almost to him and him to it. And it leapt over his car. But he felt the back end of his car get pushed down and then pushed back up as this thing landed on the trunk part of his vehicle, pushed it down, and then just freaking ran into the deserted area across the street. Not back towards the vehicles, but towards this darker way, almost heading towards Arizona. The helicopter kind of does this almost sway over his vehicle and then back again, and then almost just looking at the vehicle, probably trying to figure out plates, whatever. Who knows what kind of technology the government has. They might be able to just sit above you for a second and get your whole life history. We don't know. But it goes directly into kind of hunt mode, and he sees it turn towards where this creature had just gone. He proceeds to drive all the way back to his home in the Fruitland water flow area. And when he gets home, gets out of his vehicle, he's very shaken. He lights a cigarette, walks to the back of his car to see if there was any kind of damage to his vehicle. There was a kind of a slight dent, not anything very major. And he's just trying to figure out what he had just witnessed and trying to come to terms with. There's so many different things that could have went the wrong way that by the grace of God didn't. About a week and a half goes by and he's at his home. It's a Friday afternoon. He is preparing his sermon for the weekend, for Saturday/Sunday. And there is a pounding at his door. He answers the door, and it's New Mexico Highway Patrol. And he immediately says, "Can I help you?" He's kind of taken back. "Can I help you?" And they just very upfront and nothing held back. "Father George, we know that you witnessed an accident on this day. It was not an accident, but instead it was a training exercise. And what you saw was a matter of national security and was, like I said, a training exercise using possibly new military procedure or some sort of new age weapon." It was almost like the Highway Patrol was told what to say because it sounded almost verbatim. And he looks at the officer and he says, "Sir, don't take this any other way than the truth, but what I saw that night was not any kind of military training exercise or any kind of high-tech weaponry. I genuinely saw something I was not supposed to see. I know this." He said, "But don't fool yourself in thinking that what I saw that night was normal." And the officer kind of looks at him and says, "Well, we'd appreciate it if you wouldn't talk about this at all." And he said, "I had no intent on it. I had no intent on opening my mouth, just out of fear of retaliation." So officer looks at him and says, "Thank you, Father. I appreciate your understanding. Have a wonderful, blessed day." Got into his cruiser and took off. And he's standing outside of his home like thinking, what the hell kind of cover up is going on? I plainly saw some sort of creature that had red eyes, at least 7 feet in height. Unbelievable. That was Father George's experience via Robert. JR will be home in the next couple of days. Like I said, he's over in Gila at some isolated canyon area. I guess he had followed the West Gila or West Fork Gila River there. Gila River West Fork. But had gone to this canyon area to do some rock climbing and whatnot. So next couple of days we'll get some information on that. I'm hoping that JR agrees to come on, because he did say he was going to. So hopefully he does. And I think it'd be cool, actually. I suggested this. I said, I had two brothers on the show once, Terry and Jody. I said, I think it'd be really a neat treat for everyone to, have father and son talk about their experiences. So anyway, with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events, they've happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.